Welcome back to College Football Addiction. Some Black Friday football for you guys, and a Heisman matchup where two guys are playing at the same time, but not necessarily in the same game. Hunter with Colorado for the Buffs against Oklahoma State, and then Ashton Jeanty for Boise State against Oregon State. And neither one of those games are finished as I'm recording this. Colorado up 52-0, so the game is over. Boise State up 27-18. Looks like they're trying to get Jeanty one more touchdown there late if they can to maybe help his Heisman odds, although I think the Heisman at this point has been settled. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but what domination today for the Buffs. A shutout. Well, again, if the score changes after I get off of here, then don't blame me for that. But 52-0 with 8 minutes to go as I'm taping this. I had to get on the road to head up to Tallahassee, so send your boys some safe travels down there in the comments. But, man, a fun game. Both these games, a lot of fun. Jeanty with a nice day. Hunter with an incredible day, where he starts the game off with the interception, and you just think, well, this could be one of those days for him, and it absolutely was. 3 touchdowns later, the last touchdown just being absolutely unbelievable. How in the world did you catch that, Travis Hunter type touchdown? A lot of fun to see him get that one. Before we go too deep into what the offense did, which was phenomenal, of course, the defense today, and we talked about Oklahoma State. This is no shot at them. This is not me trying to give them a hard time. The Oklahoma State Cowboys just cannot get out of their own way. From the pick to Hunter, which, again, good play by Hunter, but not a very difficult interception, just kind of right to him. The pick six was kind of right to them. The fumble, right, where they misexchanged the handoff. Just Oklahoma State could not get out of their own way. But credit to Colorado's defense. Just while the starters were in, when it mattered, did not give up anything for the entire game, which is incredibly impressive. This is very hard to do at this level. Colorado last week against Kansas, and Kansas is playing much better than Oklahoma State is. Let's be very fair about that. I mean, Oklahoma State came into this game without having won a Big 12 game. I mean, obviously, Oklahoma State, not a great team, but not a team that you would expect to necessarily get shut out. They still had a pretty potent passing offense, and we talked about this on Wednesday night. We talked about the fact that the strengths of Oklahoma State matched up pretty well for Colorado with Colorado's defensive strengths. Oklahoma State, a really bad team defensively at scoring, running, passing. They don't stop anybody at any time, anywhere. But their offense can get going, and they can kind of get the passing game working at times. And we really thought that was kind of the, if you were going to be better running or passing, you would probably want to be a little bit better running against this Colorado defense, which has been susceptible to the run at times. I don't know that a great passing team is always going to be able to go up against a defensive secondary, a defensive backfield like what you've got at Colorado. And so I really expected Colorado to do well here, and they certainly did. They certainly went out and made the plays that needed to be made, as Oregon State just gave up another touchdown to Boise State, but it was not Jeanty. So that Heisman race is locked up. But yeah, I really do. I really thought the Buffs defense was pretty phenomenal today. Again, you are considering who you're playing, but man, at the end of the day, you can only line up against the guys that are there across from you, and to dominate the way they did is really, really impressive. At this point, the Heisman race to me is completely locked up. We'll talk about that a little bit, but if you are watching, I'm losing my voice as I'm doing this, so we do recap some of the major college football games that happened. Wanted to do something quick as a couple of games were happening today, so if you're watching, there's no ad. We're not selling you anything on this video, but do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. It certainly does help us out a ton. Heisman race locked up. I cannot imagine there's a way that anyone else can take that Heisman out of Travis Hunter's grips. I know there's a lot of outrage. There's Coach Prime talked about it, just not getting the Thorpe Award. I know that's a big deal, but he is going to take home the hardware that is most important, and he is going to take home the Heisman Trophy. I would be shocked at this point if that doesn't happen. I think he's locked it up, even if they don't play next week. At this point, what are their chances of playing next week? Well, we've talked about this too. Colorado needs a couple of things to happen, but they're maybe in good shape for that. They now win, so they put the pressure on other teams to hold serve. You've got BYU against Houston tomorrow night, on Saturday night. You certainly need Houston to win that. You have Iowa State plays Kansas State. You could use a Kansas State win there. And then Arizona State, one of the hotter teams in the Big 12, the favorite right now, plays against Arizona, a rivalry game. You certainly could use that rivalry game to go your way, to be an upset. You need 2 of those 3 matchups to go your way if you're Colorado and you're going to get into that Big 12 title game. At the end of the day, still a super successful season. And I don't want to sugarcoat things. Obviously, Colorado knows the opportunity that they blew last week, the chance they had to potentially go out and make a Big 12 championship on their own, not needing any help. So they know that, right? I don't have to nail that point home or anything like that. But even if they don't make it, right? And if this season ends at 9-3 and they get left out of the Big 12 championship based on percentage points, based on tiebreakers, they essentially had the same record as the team that's going to go out and win the thing. And they don't make it based on time. This was still a super successful season. Obviously, they went on the road. They lost to Nebraska. They lost a game. You'd say, like, man, I really would have liked to win that one to help us out a little bit. But, man, this to go 9-3, like, if you zoom out of this a little bit, and obviously Coach Prime's expectation was not to go 9-3. They think they were in every single game. They think they were right there. They were this close. And they were. They certainly had their chances to win all 3 of the games that they dropped. However, to go from 1 win to 4 wins to 9 wins is remarkable. And to, with that, have probably one of the first couple of drafted quarterbacks and overall players. I mean, they could go 1-2 in the draft, something we talked about on the other channel a long time ago. I think that it's going to feel a little bit like they, not underachieved is certainly not the right word. They didn't grasp what could have been. Right? If they'd have made that Big 12 championship game, it might have just been a little bit more special, but it really does not take away from the season that they've had. To go 9-3, they were picked to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12 this year. People were trying to figure out, could they even make a bowl game? This season at 9-3 is one of the most impressive coaching jobs, one of the best jobs that anyone in the country has done. I'd imagine the Big 12 Coach of the Year is going to go to either Kenny Dillingham or Coach Prime. Probably whoever ends up going to the Big 12 championship between those two is going to be the one to get it. Both of them really, really impressive. Both of them with really good years. And I could, shout out to Arizona State. I mean, they were picked to finish last. They had even more doubters and haters. And I know Coach Prime has talked about, his thoughts about that program and Coach Dillingham too. But, I do think that it's pretty impressive to see what they've done. Offensively today, we said on Wednesday night when we previewed this thing that Colorado would be able to name their own number. They'd be able to pick a score, and that would be where they finished. Well, at this point, they've pulled the backups out or pulled the starters out. The backups are in. Yeah, they could have kept scoring if they wanted to. Obviously, they called the dogs off once it got up 52-0. They felt like that was enough. And, man, what a win for Colorado on Black Friday. Again, they put the pressure on everybody else in the Big 12. Can everybody else hold serve? If not, we're going to find out what next week looks like. We will cover the Big 12 one way or another. We will talk about the games that happen tomorrow. We will talk about the scenarios. We will talk about who ends up making the Big 12 championship. So make sure that you're locked in here to College Football Addiction. We're going to do that for every single conference. So if you've got a fan of a team in another conference, the Big Ten's pretty self-explanatory. The ACC, Clemson still has an outside shot if Miami drops a game. But the SEC, obviously a big one there in Texas tomorrow, but we will talk about all of it here on College Football Addiction. So make sure you're tuned in. Make sure you don't miss anything. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Buffs pick up a big win today. Where does Oklahoma State go from here? We'll talk about that later on, probably an off-season topic, but we appreciate you guys for tuning in to College Football Addiction.